Well, it's time to take a look at tonight's top stories. But instead of just telling you what they are, I'm going to call on someone who we know will have a strong opinion on all of them. Joining me now is Liberal Senator Alex Antic. Alex, thanks for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. We've got 5 minutes, we've got 5 topics, and it's all you. So let's get straight into it. Number one, for the first time in history, the Biden administration have announced new passport registrations that will allow non-binary people to self-identify with an X gender marker instead of M for male and F for female. What about this, Alex? Is it a case of X marks the spot or X identifies the crazy?
Well, this is symptomatic of the Biden administration, I reckon, Corey. We've immediately gone into the Biden administration sort of turning the words male and female into hate speak. I think what we've shown here, of course, is that when the US sneezes, Australia catches the cold. So I'm expecting any time now we'll see in the Senate some Green senators tapping away on their keyboards, pumping out a motion saying that Australian Parliament should do the same thing. And when they do, I'll be sure to seek an amendment such that I can identify as an AFL footballer, because that's what I always wanted to do and I just wasn't good enough. So why can't we be what we want?
That seems to be the theme of tonight, Alex Antic. Well, what about this then? Jeanette Young has been accused of fueling the Antivaxxer movement after advising people under 40 to refrain from getting the AstraZeneca jab, going against the federal government's advice. Alex, who's right? Your government or the Queensland Health Officer?
Well, I think the individual's right, Corey. This is a matter of choice. I mean, like all medical procedures, the individual needs to retain the choice here, and there needs to be an element of consent in any medical procedure, and that's where I see the danger going here. I don't want to see people ever feeling as though they need to be a target or they're pushed into a limit, and I don't want to see, frankly, governments and health bureaucrats making decisions for people on any measure. These ultimately need to be matters of individual choice and individual freedom. So I want to see the case back in the hands of the person.
Alex, I agree with you and I also agree that you should be able to take this to your doctor and have the conversation with your doctor. They're the experts in this space, and that's all the Prime Minister said. I just can't believe these bureaucrats and other medicos got up in arms about it. Anyway, this is your section. I don't know why I'm getting into it. What about this? You mentioned your Green senators before. One of my favourites, Marine Faruqi, she's spoken out about the racist hate and, quote, abuse that she's copped in Parliament. She said, being born a person of colour outside Australia is a permanent mark that is used to render me and people like me irrelevant and voiceless in white colonised countries. This rule doesn't apply to white politicians who were born overseas and migrated here, like Julia Gillard or Tony Abbott. Now, Alex, unfortunately, you get to work with her. Does she actually have a voice? I seem to recall she used to call everyone else racists, bigots and phobes all the time. Has anything changed?
Well, there's a lot of that comes from that corner of the chamber, Corey, as you'd recall. And of course, we all deplore that kind of behaviour, and some of the things she describes in that opinion piece are appalling. We all know that. But look, the reality here is when we're calling for respect in the public discourse, it's a two-way street. And let's think back to what happened to our friend Nicole Flint last election, when she was called the most appalling names by basically members of the radical left. This is a two-way street. Respect is a mutual compact. And so I think a stronger statement from the Senator would be calling upon her supporters as well to drag that chain and lead by example.
That's a very good point. Well done, Alex. Okay, number 4. Scott Morrison has emerged from National Cabinet today with a 4-phase plan to reopen the country. Lockdowns would be eliminated, apparently. Domestic and international travel exemptions would be granted, but only if enough people get vaccinated. Alex, does this go against the freedom of the individual that we talked about earlier?
Well, look, Corey, I think I'm no medical scientist by any stretch of the imagination, but one of the things that really, really concerns me about where we're going with this is this naughty or nice register that we're going to end up with. We've talked a lot about vaccine passports, and of course we're talking about some sort of digital certificate or something of that nature which shows whether you've had the vaccination or not. This is a really dangerous precedent, and I think even if it's providing exclusions for people that have had it, that is, you get to travel if you have, it's really tomato on that. And the problem I've got is that we need to be pushing against that kind of incursion on freedom. I understand everyone wants to travel, everyone wants to get back to normal, but we've given up a lot of our freedoms in the last 18 months. And, I think that applies also to the totalitarians of the corporate world as well. We don't want to see private companies joining forces and becoming the agents of social tyranny. I think we're on a very slippery slope here, and I think we need to be very careful.
Yeah, Alex, I agree with you. And unfortunately, that people like me no longer want to travel. And I'll tell you why, because I went to Queensland for the weekend at the urging of the federal government and everyone else saying get back to normal, holiday at home. And I've now copped a 14-day lockdown, even though the Queenslanders themselves are allowed out and around with it. It's crazy and mixed up. And until there is some certainty, we're going to struggle with this. But hey, number 5, gun laws. There are new changes to manage the rising amount of unregistered guns in the country. Australia's going to get a permanent national firearms amnesty. It sounds like a good idea. The same thing was done in 2017, and that saw 57,000 guns surrendered. Alex, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, look, I think getting illegal firearms off the street, great idea. I don't have any issue with that at all. I don't think anyone would. I mean, I think the less prospect of these ending up in the wrong hands is a really good thing. But the thing that does concern me is this continual chipping away at sporting shooters, people that are safe, that are legal, that are licensed, and that want to use firearms recreationally for good purposes, for legal purposes. The narrative can't continue to build up against that crowd. There are legitimate purposes, people are responsible, they need to be treated with respect. And so as long as we're talking about pulling illegal firearms off the street, I'll give that the double thumbs up every day of the week, but we need to respect our sporting shooters as well.
You're absolutely right. I'm a sporting shooter. I know we are responsible out there, whether you're hunting or you're just target shooting, it doesn't matter. And I think this amnesty is a good idea, Alex, because there are on occasions inadvertent breaches of the law that people are often scared to try and rectify or to correct. And this is a good way in which you can hand in a firearm that may have been overlooked from even generations past. Alex Antic, absolutely. You are the voice of common sense in the Parliament. I'm delighted to hear that, and it's wonderful that you've chosen to join us on Bernardi for another Friday night. I look forward to the next occasion when you can do so. Thanks for tonight.
Thanks, Corey. Thanks for having me.